Welcome back to Nightcap Chat, the pop culture, comics, and gaming podcast. Today we are talking about iconic vehicles in media and future comic book investments. I'm Blade O'Neill.
I'm Ken Brown.
So, Ken, I think this topic was actually something you thought up of was, iconic vehicles, whether it's in cinema or TV shows. Yes. And it is certainly was an essential part of all kinds of movies, whether it's in a chase scene or, it's got the cool guy in the cool car. I see you're wearing a Transformer shirt, so I already think I know, like, what are some of your favorite vehicles that we've had in media?
Well, my favorite one of all time, I had to think about this a lot because you brought this up. Well, we brought this up about a week ago. We came up with this idea, right? My favorite one growing up was always Kit from Knight Rider.
Okay, yeah.
And I said, too, it was people used to refer to me. It's like, oh, yeah, this has been done before, but it was like a Lone Ranger and Tonto as like Knight Rider. And I'm going like that. Like Tonto was one that kept Lone Ranger in line. And Lone Ranger was the great hero of the day. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of going, oh, I don't know about that. But that was kind of, to me, like, I think of this as like a super cool piece of technology that is, yeah, you're right. It is like Kit is the balanced Michael Knight. Like sure. they can't coexist without each other. And that's maybe they're hitting at, like Lone Ranger in Tonto. Congratulations to the Toronto Raptors, the NBA champions. Dude, here.
Are they?
Yeah, they just beat the Golden State Warriors in the finals about a week and a half back.
Oh, okay.
And so it must have that on my mind still because nobody expected the Toronto Raptors to win the championship at the start of the season. And they ended up being the first championship to the NBA in Toronto.
I didn't even know NBA had a team in Canada.
Yeah, it's funny too because the area around the arena they call Jurassic Park, which I think is awesome.
Really?
Yes, yeah. The Toronto Raptors, their sports district around the arena they call Jurassic Park.
I didn't know that.
Just super awesome in my opinion, being pop culture fans that we are. So it's kind of fun that they're called the Toronto Raptors. And they decide, let's go further. Let's name the area around us the Jurassic Park.
That's pretty. Jurassic Park, like that's another prime example of...
Ford Explorer. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what it was? I thought it was a Jeep. Man, yeah. I was even wrong about that.
Yeah, the original one was, they had a Ford Explorer that toured the park, and there were Jeeps. They drove around the park.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yes, you're right on both accounts on that, dude. So, yeah, the Ford Explorer was the tour vehicle they took around.
Gotcha.
When you had, like, the bubble window, and it was the early, kind of helped make the Ford Explorer explode. Because it's kind of funny to think about that. That was an early Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
Because the Bronco, 90s, right? Ford Bronco just got canceled in the Ford timeline of things shortly around that time frame. And they transitioned the Bronco into a Ford Explorer where it was a four-door sports utility vehicle rather than the two-door sports utility vehicles that the Broncos were. And it's like that was an early promotion of the Ford Explorer was in Jurassic Park.
And probably an early or it's probably one of the few examples that it's more of a utility vehicle that's popular because it seems like it's always like a sports car.
Yes.
Especially in like James Bond or Knight Rider, that's more of a sports car.
Hence the name they use sports utility vehicle because they still wanted to reach the sports car audience. But let's make a car sporty that's so you can go hiking, you can go camping, you can take it places where sports cars can't go and still look cool.
Yeah.
And that the Jeep was that grandfather of that era because Jeeps were always the original SUV. And then, but when they kind of did the whole thing, like we want a car that still feels like a car, but it's got all the utilities of off-roading. And that's where I guess the SUVs, I mean, it was funny too, because Blazers and Broncos were still around with Jeeps to kind of compete with that Jeep market. But they transitioned it into a hybrid between a station wagon and a sports car because no, red-blooded sports car driving person wanted to drive a station wagon.
Okay.
But they could get excited about driving a Blazer or a Bronco or a Jeep. But then mom feels like that we're being like, dude, this is totally accessible. We could get all the equipment in there. We can get all the stuff for the family trip. And dad still feels like he's driving a high-powered car.
I think a station wagon would be awesome personally, but I've never been much of a car person really to begin with, although I am a big James Bond fan. So like, I mean, to me, one of the most iconic vehicles would be like the Aston Martin.
Yes, the silver Aston Martin.
And you know what? They brought that back around in one of the later Daniel Craig movies,
Yes.
you know, having that Aston Martin. So I almost feel like it's older cars, and this was almost a thing of a past, that the way these vehicles are iconic, because like of the last, you know, 5 to 10 years, what have we had that is really iconic? Because even Transformers, you had Bumblebee. It was just a Camaro. They brought back the old Camaro. It's just a modern version of the old Camaro. Like, when's the last time we've done something new that's iconic?
Yes, I said too. Bumblebee was probably, as you said too, your biggest one of a modern car turning back into an iconic car.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said too, going with the Camaro is like they just brought back the Camaro for the first time. I want to say Camaros were stopped in 2003.
Really?
And it was the SUV market that took over the sports car market. And so the Camaro just lost a ton of sales. It's okay. We just need to stop production on the Firebirds and the Camaros.
No, that's a shame.
And Transformers, the first movie came in a line with exactly the same year the Camaro was re-released. Mm-hmm. And you see how popular Camaros are again.
Yeah, you know.
And I really give a lot of credit towards the Transformers first live action movie helping make the Camaro success.
Absolutely. I mean, people would then want it in yellow with the black stripe just because it was Bumblebee.
They did Bumblebee edition Camaros for that.
You know, I just said, like, I'm not much of a car person, but watching that movie, like, I thought this new Camaro was beautiful.
Yes.
It was such a cool car, but I will admit, like, I got to test drive one, and I'm over it because, like, I don't like sitting that low, and the windshield was really short, and like it's just not my cup of tea. I mean, I get it if you're into sports cars, but like, I still think it's a beautiful car.
Yes,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like I have an RS 2014 Camaro, and I love it.
Yeah,
and it's just something like it's my midlife crisis car.
Yes,
you know, it's like that. I loved Firebirds growing up, and unfortunately, the economy crash of the mid 2000s, a lot of car companies unfortunately folded, and GM had to fold about half of their line. I mean, there's no more Pontiacs anymore. There's no more Oldsmobiles anymore.
I know. I have a Pontiac, and like I don't want to get rid of it now. I just hit 200,000 miles, and it's just a Pontiac vibe, which is the same thing as like a Toyota Matrix.
Yes.
So it's just a little wagon, but like they don't make Pontiacs. So like, why would I want to get rid of it?
Because it's that too. Firebird was one of my favorite cars, and I always wanted my bucket list before that. I wanted to own a Trans Am somehow, and it's unfortunately, you know, they do a Trans Am worldwide aftermarket body shop in Tampa Bay, where these guys that are just like me, huge Trans Am fans, but they actually are people that work on cars and do restore, do performance enhancements.
Oh, that's neat.
And they started converting when the Camaro came back into production. They had the brilliant idea we can mod these into Trans Ams.
No kidding.
Because it used to be on the same platform, the Camaros and the Firebirds, up to the point Pontiac went extinct. And it's really kind of cool like that. It's way out of my wheel well price wise now, because to get one of these Camaro modifies into Trans Ams usually goes around $80,000.
Wow.
But they totally upgrade the performance. They do all the body work. They make it pretty much, it is as if a Trans Am was still being made by Pontiac.
That's really neat.
And it's really, really super cool. They actually did I think on the Speed Channel, they did a TV show about him for a while. They not only do modern Camaros, but if you have a Firebird or anything Pontiac or anything that's a muscle car, you could bring it to them and they'll modify it up to modern specs for you, or just rebuild it completely to do like the original specs for you.
The Dukes of Hazzard car.
Yeah, the Dodge Charger.
Yeah.
That's another iconic car.
Yeah.
That's a car I kind of wish that Dodge and Mopar would bring back to modern look like they did the Dodge Challenger. Because if you look at the Dodge Challenger that's out right now, that is as close as you'll get to the nostalgic look of a car that was produced 20, 30 years ago.
You know, even though I'm not a car guy, I think the Challenger is really neat, and it looks like an old school muscle car.
It is.
And doesn't everybody love that? I don't understand why we're getting away from trying to like reinvent the wheel on certain things. Cause like, I don't like sports cars, especially modern ones. I mean, I would guess I would consider getting an older one because they're really neat.
Yeah. The revival of the muscle car, I think, is a huge thing in today's marketplace of cars. And it is too. It's like it was sad to see the 90s become like the fall of sports cars for a while too. I mean, it was like another, I think, huge revival to this market has been the Fast and the Furious movies.
Interesting.
Because they celebrated all those cars from that area or that era that became discontinued. The Mazda RX-7s, the Mitsubishi Eclipses. Let me see too. What else? The Toyota MR2s, or all the cars that were Honda Civics. Do you mean that Honda Civics are still made to this day? Don't get me wrong, but they modified them to make them street racers.
But now, like, I had a friend with a 92 Honda Civic, and he would mess around with it and even like take the muffler off to make it sound weird, loud, just to be a pain, but like it certainly helped, popularize stuff like that.
What was the car culture like that? I kind of think the Fast and the Furious, remember the 1950s, like Happy Days? Like car culture. Another one, what's the American Graffiti? Okay. I think of American Graffiti as the early generation's version of the Fast and the Furious. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. Like they had a plot line of the characters, but it was centered around enjoying driving your cars around town. Do you know what I mean? And American Graffiti took place in the 1950s. And, it's Fast and the Furious is more or less taking place in modern times now, but it deals around the love of being in touch, connected with your car.
Yeah, but
your car life,
and even more so than that, just the freedom of having the car and just going out and about, or with the top down, with your friends, or go to the diner.
The American love affair with the car.
Yeah,
it's like that. Your adventures start behind your steering wheel.
I feel like we haven't had much of that anymore. Like I don't know if we've just come away with it. I mean, like there's, like you said, like we've got the Fast and the Furious, but like we don't have anything like
it's not the iconic car anymore.
Yeah.
And Knight Rider tried making a comeback. I really do feel that they dropped the ball of making it too much of an advertisement for Ford.
Really?
Rather than focus on the fact of like, hey, let's tell the story. I remember during the Knight Rider, Val Kilmer voiced Kit. And it was the Knight Industries 3000, if I remember correctly. It's like that wasn't even the Knight Industries 2000, because obviously the 2000s were here and it's no longer future technology. It's the year 2000s. And,
interesting.
But it just didn't go over quite as well, because even during the commercial breaks, they would use the car in the commercials to advertise Ford.
Ridiculous.
And that's where it lost me pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I said too, it was like I still to this day search for that on Blu-ray or DVD. It's not even in production.
Wow.
And so that's how much Universal Studios and NBC gave up on that, because obviously it wasn't getting ratings, because they knew they couldn't fool the fans of Knight Rider. I mean, it's sad to say, yes, Pontiac's no longer around. You can't use a Firebird anymore for Kit. But at the same time, it's a GM product. I would have loved if they would have used the Camaro to be the new Kit. I would have been fine with that, because it sticks along with the heritage of what the original Knight Rider was. But Ford outbid Universal for GM, and they went to make it a Ford product. And they also did a Team Knight Rider series after the original Knight Rider series was canceled back in the 80s. And that was a Ford commercial too, as well, unfortunately. And so maybe that's just Universal's got this contract with Ford, and that's what they're going for.
Maybe they were better off just sticking with, how it used to be, because like, I mean, we go to comic book conventions, like we've seen these people who have built their own Knight Riders or their own, is it a Ghostbusters?
The Cadillac station wagon.
Yeah. Like, and they're like right on.
Yes, absolutely.
Like we have all of these, passionate fans, making these things, and like these modern movies aren't even doing it. Like just,
it's like they're iconic cars. It's part of culture. I mean, people are even making their own, like where they'll get whatever car they want and they'll car wrap it as Iron Man. Have you seen that? Like there's cars, people like just car wrap
especially
their cars.
The Dodge Avenger.
Yes, dude, a Dodge Avenger, perfectly.
Yeah, there's this one
they
kind
put
of
the Shield license plates on him all the time.
Yes. I have a Shield license plate and a decal, so I always get excited when I see like other Shield vehicles around.
Yes, and it's like cars are a major part of pop culture. Like another one I think is very underutilized right now, and I said too, I'm not as much of a Supernatural fan as I should be, but the Black Impala that's in Supernatural.
I never saw it.
And I keep on, I think it's called Baby or something like that, but I'm not. Let me see. So I guess it's not as iconic because I thought, because I don't watch enough Supernatural too. But they do like that. You'll see Johnny Lightning make one. You'll see Funko Pops. They did a version of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's awesome too, is Funko doing the Pop Rides right now. And that's kind of hopefully going to bring more attention to the fact of like, hey, we need to make the vehicles a major part of the story, because the 70s and 80s are like, Starsky and Hutch, the red Torino with the white stripe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they put that in the movie. They didn't change up to a modern Torino.
Yeah.
They used the 1970s Torino in that movie, which was awesome. The Dukes of Hazzard, even though it was modern day, they still used 1968 Dodge Charger. And I think some of it is they are afraid of creating something new that people won't recognize.
Well, look, we just said how it failed with Knight Rider,
and that's because I think it would have been fine if they didn't do the commercials to try to sell Ford Mustangs during the commercial breaks. Trans Am sold during Knight Rider. It was a black Trans Am. It was the first year they made that new model of it. Trans Am sales went through the roof on that Pontiac back in 1982. They couldn't keep them in stock. And it was like there was a waiting list to buy Trans Ams when Knight Rider started. And it wasn't because they were doing Pontiac commercials. I remember one Pontiac Firebird commercial during Knight Rider. It wasn't that obvious. And then when the new one came out, it was blatantly a Ford commercial to me.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, part of it too, though, is probably not even like, you might not even have to even have like the best looking vehicle for it to become iconic. I mean, look at a show like Scooby-Doo. Like I know it's a cartoon.
Yes.
But for the live action one, they kept the Mystery Machine a van.
Yes,
and
that's
it looked
what it
like
should
the
be.
Mystery. It was the Mystery Machine, and like I said, like you go to a Comic-Con where they do have like their vehicles on display, like, and you might come across a Mystery Machine replica. So it doesn't always have to be like the most beautiful car. Like if your story is just good and has just this central, the Mystery Machine's almost its own character in a way, in Scooby-Doo.
The metallic car is what fans refer to the supernatural 67 Impala they drive around. It's like that. Dean's car, affectionately dubbed the metallic car by fans, originally belonged to his father. So it's got even a little history on Wikipedia about the car on Supernatural. And it's funny, too, one of the quotes, like Eric Kripke's source, whether it was Knight Rider or Magnum P.I. or the Dukes of Hazzard, all these shows always had a character that was a car. And I always really responded to that.
That's right. Magnum PI.
A red Ferrari 308.
Yes.
1978.
I loved watching Magnum PI.
It was awesome watching that, even in Hawaii Five-0. Have you watched Hawaii Five-0 recently?
I don't think so.
Okay, the new Hawaii Five-0, there's once again, I'm affectionate towards Camaros and Firebirds.
Okay.
I was drawn to that show because they were always driving around in a silver Camaro Z28 around the island.
Okay.
That was Dano's car
when
he was undercover when he was going around as a detective. And I'm kind of going, same with the Rockford Files. He had a gold 77 Firebird. And I go, okay, cool. Punch from Chips. Remember Chips? The original Chips. Okay, they made it into a movie recently, but it was based off a 1970s show. Punch had a gold Trans Am, and John Baker, which was his partner that drove on the other motorcycle, he drove a blue Chevy Stepside.
Okay.
And it's like, dude, like, why do I remember these things? Do you know what I mean? Because they showed you them driving around in the show on action scenes with these vehicles, not just their motorcycles. I don't know what kind of motorcycle the Ship's motorcycles guys were driving.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I thought they were motorcycle guys, because I never really watched the show, but like it is about like what part the vehicle or car plays into, like James Bond. Like there was always a car for the movie and had some kind of gadget in it that was important, to the plot. Well, even, whether it's the ejector seats or whatever. Yeah,
like even Boss Hogg's car, Dukes of Hazzard.
It
was a bullhorned Eldorado convertible. I mean, it's like everybody remembers the bullhorns.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean? On this white Cadillac Eldorado, that this throwaway character that was the boss of the Hazard County. You don't even know whether he was with the police department or whatever his thing was.
It was just part of his excessiveness.
Yes, dude. And it was just like that. The car was as much the character as he was.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's just like that. I kind of think like that. Will we get that again? I kind of think Ready Player One, the opening scene, celebrated all of that.
Interesting.
In the race that was more or less to try to get that first stage, to get the first clue to once again find the fortune in Ready Player One.
Yeah.
But you look at that, there was the Back to the Future car, there was the Knight Rider car, there was the Batmobile was in it, the 1960s. Speaking of culture cars, the Batmobile is one of the top culture cars of all time. Pop
Absolutely.
Culture cars. I mean, and they keep on reinventing it. So talking about, once again, reinventing it, the Batmobile, every time they reinvent it, people remember what it was and how cool it looked.
And you're right, but I would argue the Christian Bale one was that Tumbler. First step toward becoming not memorable. Yes. Because we went, so the 1960s one, it was a convertible, right?
Lincoln Futura.
And that was cool, yes. Right? And then once we got to Michael Keaton, it was like a sports car. Exactly. Thing, yeah. And I think it was made from a Corvette too, wasn't it?
Pretty sure. Yes.
And it kind of kept that model up until Christian Bale with the Tumbler. Yes. But like, what does that look like? You can't really even draw that, from memory. It's so complicated.
I think, yes, go ahead.
But now what does Ben Affleck's Batmobile look like?
Yeah.
Kind of like a knockoff of the Tumbler, kind of.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of unfortunate that, I mean, sure, it reflects our SUV culture because, like you said, we were excited about SUVs, and then now
it was the Hummer Batmobiles.
Exactly, and it totally was. But I would argue the Ben Affleck's Batmobile is not very iconic.
No, that's a good point. I said too is that they haven't shown much of the Ben Affleck Batmobile. They had that one chase scene during Suicide Squad?
I think so, because what I remember is the Joker's car, because it was. Yes. That was such a Joker car. Yep. That was really neat.
They made it iconic looking.
It was. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's just like anything. It's like a superhero costume. Like that. Unfortunately, the X-Men movie costumes were not iconic.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? But
they were scared.
But like the Superman costume, the Batman costume, the Spider-Man costume, the Iron Man armor, the Captain America costume, those costumes were iconic costumes. And it's the same thing with cars. It's like that. If you make the car iconic, it becomes, just like I said, it becomes this important part of the story.
Absolutely.
Literally, Fast and the Furious has built a franchise off of the co-stars being cars. I mean, even the Ghost Rider, the new Ghost Rider that was on S.H.I.E.L.D., that was a Dodge Charger too.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's it's not a motorcycle anymore. Yeah. It's a classic car that people recognize.
Yeah, no, that is iconic. And the Batmobile though is probably.
And I think with the Batmobiles, you really have to make it look cool because people can't. Oh gosh, dude, associate. They can't not recognize. They can't identify. My apologies, dude. They cannot identify with the cars because they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And when you use cars that have become part of pulp culture over the years, like the General Lee started the Dodge Charger iconicism.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was in Gone in 60 Seconds, there was a Charger in the movie. There's been in Fast and the Furious. There's been in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Ghost Rider. People recognize a Dodge Charger when they see it. It's the same type of thing with Firebird Trans-Ams. Smoking the Bandit was what made the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. If you want to go to the top of the tree of what made that car iconic, it's Smoking the Bandit with Burt Reynolds.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they did 3 movies, and every one they did the most recent version of the Trans Am. He wasn't driving the same 77 Trans Am all the way through.
Yeah.
The next one had a 7980 Trans Am. Then Smoking the Bandit 3.
Yeah.
It wasn't even Burt Reynolds. It was the guy that drove the truck. He pulled out a Trans Am, and it was a black and gold one, just like the first one and the second one.
Yep.
But it was the Knight Rider version of the Trans Am. And he drove that around the whole movie. That was the co-star.
Yep.
Well, I mean, as I said, too, as much as it was Michael Knight and Kit, it was, Smoking the Bandit. It was the Bandit and the Trans Am. And as I said, too, it was like that. Smokey always had his police car chasing him, but nobody remembers the police car that he was driving because the main character was the Trans Am in that. And then afterwards, that era, between, I want to say that, that 1978 to about 1989, Firebirds were a major part of TV shows. And because they saw that became an iconic car.
Yep.
And same with, I said too, the Chargers, it's interesting because that's a muscle throwback car. And they always use that same year, it seemed like, that 1968 Dodge Charger. But they always go back to a car that people recognize because, oh, dude, that's awesome. Remember Dukes of Hazzard? And it's just, even in the new Dukes of Hazzard, they didn't upgrade to, a 4-door Dodge Charger with the orange with the, the Georgia state flag on it.
It wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, it's weird like that. So the only car I've seen evolve that way, where it doesn't matter what year it is there Firebirds and Corvettes. and Corvettes or something and like that. It's just Corvette is an iconic part of Americana history, whether it's in movies or just in anywhere. People recognize Corvettes.
Yeah, like and if you can call it the Batmobile, that's fine too. I don't understand why the DC movies don't try to go back to a little more of a Corvette type of Batmobile, because I mean, if he had the Bat plane and the Bat boat and whatever, and that was fine, like why can't he have a separate, more tactical vehicle like a Hummer separate from his main Batmobile? Because there's transportating and a little technology too, but in theory, like you're more of a tank vehicle, has a tank purpose.
Yes.
Right? Like he's Batman. Why can't he have, more than one type of Batmobile?
That's true. And
I think that's okay.
Yeah. And that's the too. It's funny too, because you'll see in comics that where if you go in the Batcave, you'll see kind of like his dealership of the different eras of Batmobiles he has and keeps whatever the mission, almost like Iron Man armors.
Sure.
It's like that. Okay, Iron Man's got his armors. Batman has his Batmobiles. Whatever utility mission he needs it for, let's go to this Batmobile.
And I understand some people do really like the Tumbler. I just feel like they're a little more forgettable. And to me, I remember having, a Batmobile toy, of Michael Keaton's Batmobile, and that to me was cool.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree, because it took me a long time to accept the Tumbler as a Batmobile.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And it's I kind of looked at it as like that. Okay, it's only because they're really wanting to focus on Wayne Industries being a military manufacturer of weaponry,
and it was practical.
Yes.
But I mean, X-Men have the Quinjet.
Yes.
That I think that's it's practical. Oh yeah, the Blackbird, a Quinjet. That's Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah. What am I saying? See, the Blackbird, I think, is probably more iconic than the Quinjet.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, the Blackbird was an SR-71, which was, to me, one of the coolest planes. And all, once again, same type of thing, a vehicle, whether it's cars or vehicles in general, like pop culture vehicles. I think the SR-71 Blackbird was one of the most cool-looking comic book planes or vehicles in comic book history.
And whether or not you can ever own a plane, you can still appreciate.
Professor X. I don't know where he's getting his funding from, but we haven't talked about Optimus Prime yet. And
oh my gosh! Yes, Optimus Prime.
Yeah, we talked about Bumblebee, but as I said too, it was like that. Who made rigs that were the most boring rigs since BJ and the Bear?
You're
and two, one of the most iconic, because that's one of those few shows that was based off of being a semi-truck driver. Was BJ and the Bear. You had the guy that was the truck driver and the monkey that hung around with them, the orangutan, BJ and the Bear, and that was the closest that driving a rig was cool. And then all of a sudden Optimus Prime comes out, and dude, rigs were freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like everybody wanted the toy truck with the trailer behind it. Do you know what I mean? And it was like sports cars. A red truck with a trailer that's, meant for transporting like flour from state to state. Do you know what I mean?
Now, the live action one had flames on it.
Yes,
right?
that was the first time they put the flames.
No, was that? That's what I was going to ask. I didn't remember that being on the cartoon.
Yeah, and it was just a plain, I don't know, almost like international rig back up to that point, just a flat nose square box rig, not even cool design like they did for the movies. And every kid wanted an Optimus Prime type of toy if they liked Transformers in that generation, and he became the lead character in every movie that they did. And like that, these toys were just toys that were over in Japan, and Hasbro wanted to something that would kind of be like what's going to be the new generation of toy lines. And GoBots were becoming popular, and Transformers at that same time hit. And GoBots, whatever reason, as soon as Transformers hit, working with Marvel helped develop these personalities for these robots. It was almost like Robot Avengers.
Yeah, I mean,
do you know what I mean?
But it's genius too, because it's playing on not only people who like toy cars, but robots.
Absolutely.
Like as a kid, you're like, wow, I can have this toy. It's not only a car, but it's a robot.
And they used iconic cars, like like the Bumblebee was a VW Bug. Do you mean like they knew cars? They did cars that people recognized, like Sideswipe and Sunstreaker were Lamborghini Countaches.
No kidding.
Jazz was a Porsche 935.
Okay.
Let me see too. Trax was a Corvette.
Okay.
And they weren't like imaginary cars when Transformers first started. They were cars that were being built on the road.
What was Megatron in the original cartoon?
Megatron was a gun. I'm trying to remember like a 45 Magnum.
I remember him transforming a gun. That was it. He was just a gun.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. I didn't really watch the cartoon too much, and I remember him transforming to a gun. I didn't think that was it. I thought that was
like when he transformed, Starscream would grab him and shoot him, and like that he would turn from robot and land in Starscream's hand, and Starscream would be firing.
We're a bunch of cars, and we're gonna fight a gun.
Yeah. Well, it was like the Autobots were usually cars, and Decepticons were usually spaceships or planes.
I see.
And then there are some things that were a little bit, triple changers. Like, Blitzkrieg was a tank and a space shuttle and a robot.
But you had the dinosaur
the Dinobots
robots too. Yeah,
yes,
Dinobots.
those are one of the first next generation, not generation 2, but the first generation ones. Like the Autobots were all cars, and the Decepticons were other inanimate objects. Like Soundwave was a tape cassette player.
Yeah,
remember? And then like the jets, everything's inanimate. Cars are inanimate too. I apologize, dude. But
well, no, I know what you mean.
Like his force of jets were airstrikers.
Yeah.
And then the Autobots didn't have any jets until Jetfire came around, and they even made Jetfire a defected Decepticon. He was storytelling wise originally part of the Decepticons, but he didn't agree with the ideal, so he defected to Optimus Prime's team.
Huh.
And it was just eventually it's like, oh man, we need to learn how to fight the air squad, so they came up with aerial bots, and the aerial bots were the first airborne Autobots.
Oh,
and there was also the Decepticons came up with the Stunticons to have vehicles to go on the land battles on, and then obviously the Constructicons, Devastator, those guys were land vehicles too. And so it was interesting like that, where they started with like, okay, air guys are bad guys, land guys are good guys, but they did have that one God, dude, there was like a spaceship-looking character that nobody ever seems to remember. I apologize, but that was the only Autobot that I remember that was like an airborne.
Well, then the live-action ones really, they made them all cars pretty much. Although I guess Megatron wasn't he a jet?
I think Megatron was a jet too, as well.
The first one.
Yeah. And then like I said too, is like that eventually they kind of transitioned Megatron over the years from being a gun, they moved him into a tank.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so that way it was kind of more of a vehicle than like that. Kids like more or less walking around with guns in their hand that are toys.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's like urban legends that the laser tag law is what changed all of that.
Oh,
like
really?
where a police officer shot a kid playing laser tag.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's to kind of change the whole thing of like toy guns, instead of being something imaginary, into being a problem for society. And like that, the orange tips they started putting on the end of them, and eventually they started changing the colors. Like, Megatron became Galvatron, and he was a purple like ray gun. Yeah. So it's pretty obvious that it wasn't a real gun. Yeah. And then eventually,
I'm not much of a Transformers guy. I didn't realize that was the same character.
Yeah, Megatron, if the Transformers, the animated movie that came out in 1986, they did the whole, remember, Death of Optimus Prime? And Megatron took a death shot too, and like he was not doing well. And Starscream on the shuttle Blitzkrieg we were talking about earlier, when he threw him out into space. And have you ever heard of Unicron?
Maybe.
Unicron's kind of like the Galactus of the Transformers universe. Like he'll go around eating planets for energy.
Oh, wow.
And he saw more or less some of the fallen Decepticons after the war on Earth, where Optimus died during that section. And then the casualties of that battle at the start of the Transformers animated movie led to some Decepticons being thrown off the ships because it was too heavy for Blitzkrieg to carry them all.
Oh.
And those sacrifices became, like, Unicron saw them, and like that more or less gave him an opportunity to be rebuilt and then go get the Matrix back from.
So it's almost like a Heralds of Galactus thing, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. it was a pretty interesting movie. I think it's one of the best animated movies off of a toy line I've ever seen. And so a lot of people remember it fondly. They tried recreating the same thing with the G.I. Joe toy line. It just was nowhere near as popular as the Transformers movie was.
Yeah.
But that's it too. It's like vehicles, cars, robots. Transformers were, that perfectly in that wheel well.
Yep.
Which I said too brings it into the fact of like now Transformers, 1984. I think we're looking at 35 years of Transformers this year, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
So 35 years of Transformers, I think, is really super kind of cool, because Ghostbusters came out the same year.
Okay.
And I take forward, you see the San Diego Comic Con Ghostbusters Optimus Prime that's coming out?
No, Oh, wait. Yeah, no, I think I did. I think I did actually.
Yeah, they're releasing an Optimus Prime in Ghostbusters colors. And it's going to come with a Slimer.
Wow.
And that's one of the coolest ways to do a celebration of an anniversary of a toy line I think I've ever seen, because there were Ghostbusters toys too.
Interesting.
And I didn't know Hasbro had the rights to Ghostbusters toys, but they must to do something like that.
I feel like Hasbro keeps buying things because they just bought Power Rangers.
Yeah, don't they feel like the Disney of toys?
Right. You know what though? Like, I think I'm okay with that. Like Hasbro puts out some
awesome
good stuff. I remember San Diego Comic-Con one year, Erica got She-Ra Polly Pockets.
Nice.
So talk about crossovers.
Yes.
You know, like the Polly Pocket was a really popular set of toys. You know, it was girls' toys, but I mean, you know, She-Ra was, you know, that He-Man kind of geared toward little girls as well.
Yes.
But like that thing, if you find it on eBay now, it's, you know, it's probably worth $200, but like, you know, it's they held down the market.
Yes.
You know, with that crossover. So I bet this Optimus Prime is gonna do the exact same thing. Like that's gonna be hot.
Looking forward to getting one. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to track one down or not, but I'm like, I saw the previews of it this week, and I go, that is freaking awesome. Yep. That's transitioning into collectibles. Transformers comics, the early Marvel series have always been super popular.
Really? I didn't even realize they started with Marvel Comics.
Yeah, 1984 as well. They did a 4-issue miniseries, and it was only supposed to be a 4-issue miniseries, kind of like Starriers was. It sounds, I don't know if they heard of Starriers, but Starriers were wind-up robots.
Okay.
That I think, once again, the toy companies used to come to Marvel quite a lot to help develop the characters that didn't have storylines when they were purchasing the toy lines.
Yeah.
And they would come to Marvel. They did it with G.I. Joe, did it with Transformers, Thundercats. Let me see here too as well. Starriers, Micronauts, even those were old ROM.
Yeah,
those were toy lines that where how do we get kids to recognize what this is? And so they would go to Marvel to help them develop stories for these toys. And they would come up with universe building, because once again, that's something Marvel was great at with Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four. What can we do to give these toys identities?
So those first comics, were they pretty obtainable before the Michael Bay movies, or is this something that was always valuable?
Their Transformers were something that was always popular. Like Marvel, like the time they're out, 1984 to 1995 was the original 80-issue Transformers series.
Okay.
And G.I. Joe started in 1982. And that went 155 issues before they canceled it back in 96.
Yeah.
And 95, 96. I have to double check my dates. I apologize. But they more or less, G.I. Joe was like just as popular as Sergeant Rock, if not more popular than Sergeant Rock, I would say. And I felt G.I. Joe really got, and Transformers both hit on that Avengers mentality. Do you know what I mean? It's like Captain America's Optimus Prime.
Yep.
Duke is Optimus Prime.
Yep.
Duke is Captain America.
Yep.
They're interchangeable things that where, okay, your Batman is kind of like Bumblebee in a weird way of saying Superman, Batman, because Bumblebee was more or less your tactical guy.
Okay.
Right? Or type of thing too. It's like that Justice League, another mix. I apologize. Let's put in Avengers too. With that team dynamic of how can we make, you know, team members interchangeable no matter who the character is.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, you know, a bit of a formula to things like that, you know. I mean, I guess you don't want to always exactly copy and paste, but I mean, people are different, right? So that's how it should be.
But they're traits
that
people like.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that. Even Optimus Prime being red and blue. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of Captain America right there as well.
Or Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Or Spider-Man too as well. Like what are colors that fans will associate with, and who, what position should they have on the team?
It's really interesting.
And it's like, it's to me, it was like very kind of, I think, why people gravitated towards, because they became invested in not this robot toy that they could transform, but the storyline that was behind each character that was in that storyline.
Yep.
And, but Transformers comics, I think that, as I said too, there's so much focus on the superhero comics becoming valuable over the years. I think these toy line comics are going to continue to rise in value.
Okay.
I mean, like that, the Thundercats comics are starting to rise in value.
Really?
He-Man comics are rising in value.
And I think part of the
Star Wars comics from the original line continue to rise in value.
Do they really? That surprises me, especially since Disney proclaimed those to be not canon.
But as I said too, it's like it's still part of Star Wars history. The first one is A New Hope adapted.
Yes.
Into it. They did the Empire Strikes Back line adapted. And then it's funny, they did that one issue where Boba Fett was not even the real Boba Fett, but it was a Boba Fett looking cover. It's not even like it's another Mandalorian. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he wasn't even Boba Fett. It was a Mandalorian.
Okay.
And that's one of the hottest issues of the run, issue number 68.
Yep.
And 107, the last issue of Star Wars, is a low print run. And so it's like, oh man, people trying to complete their Star Wars runs.
Yeah.
They have a hard time finding that. And it's so much focus. Like, the superhero books are always going to continue to rise in value, but you can still do a lot of dollar bin digging on a lot of these toy comics.
Well, not only the toy comics, like in some of the older Star Wars comics too, is I every time there's one of the comics that adapts any of the Thrawn novels, that feature Thrawn and Mara Jade. I mean, it's just neat having it in that medium.
Yes.
And seeing it, with the picture. Like I like reading the novels, and I like reading, but like, it's a cool way to kind of bust through them. And I think it's really neat that Marvel is going back and still doing stuff like that, because they recently did the first Thrawn novel, the recent one that Timothy Zahn did. And they adapted it as, I think it was a 6-part comic book series. And it was neat comparing what I initially imagined to what the artists came up with. I mean, a lot of it, sure. I mean, what Thrawn looks like, what Governor Price looks like. But when I read the intro, I did not picture them as clone troopers that he was fighting, because they were calling them, I thought they called them stormtroopers. But because of where it takes place in Order 66, versus the original trilogy, like, they were still in clone armor.
Yes.
But it was the Empire. So that was really like, I didn't even think about imagining it like that.
Yes. It's like they kind of integrated to fit into their timeline and their canon.
They thought about it, and that's great. As far as investments go, like they introduced Dr. Aphra in Darth Vader number 3.
That's super undervalued right now.
It is undervalued. You can still probably pick that up for maybe $15. I was going to say $15. I think I picked one up for that, maybe a couple of dollars less just the other day, because like that's one like I will buy.
Yes,
like she's an incredible character.
You know what I think that is, unfortunately, too?
Why is that?
The variant market, because there's a Waltz Portacio variant that's a 1 in 25. And everybody thinks that's the valuable Dr. Aphra book to own. And I'm kind of going, dude, that's kind of unfair to that fact, because she's there iconically. The cover of number 3 standard is so much more iconically screaming first Aphra than Vader reaching over trying to save whoever this mysterious person is that's landing over the ledge.
Yeah.
And just because they say that one's more scarce, it keeps the other one so repressed. And I don't think that's totally fair to that book, because in the long term, when people are going to be looking, when Aphra gets announced for the movie, they're not going to care about that Darth Vader reaching over for the person falling.
No, they want the first print.
Yes, because what's going to look better on the wall, especially when you talk about Dr. Aphra, you want to have that one with her, and then, oh gosh, dude, I just forgot the name of her sidekicks.
So it's triple zero and BT1.
And it's an iconic Star Wars image.
It is.
That fits the Star Wars franchise.
And it's really cool art.
Yes, and the art is gorgeous on it. I want to say, is that LaRocca that did that cover? Salvador LaRocca?
Maybe.
Yeah, dude. And it's just, it screams iconic Star Wars moment. And as I said too, and it's like, that's why I like all due respect to variant collectors and everything like that. Yes, just because something's more scarce doesn't make it better.
Yeah.
And it's, it is. I understand the whole rule of supply and demand, but anything that's iconic will always be more appreciated.
Especially in the long first. Term. This is the first appearance thing,
Absolutely.
Louis Portacio. It's not like that was his first variant cover he's ever done.
No, and it's cool.
First piece of art.
It's just not iconic the same way that the regular cover.
No, I agree, and I think some of her earlier comics, might go up in value too. If I find like Dr. Aphra, like 1 through 3, for a couple bucks, like I'll grab those as well. But like that Darth Vader number 3, I think is going to suddenly, just like you said, just wait till she's in a movie or she gets a show or whatever.
And she's the one that was created in the comics first. That's part of canon.
Yes.
In the Star Wars universe. Because I said too, is like, you know, everyone said, oh, Kanan, his first comics should be worth money. And I go, Kanan first appeared in those Disney cartoons before the comic. And I said too, if I remember correctly, I think this is the first major character that they invented in the Star Wars comics line.
I mean, the only other one that comes to mind is that bunny that I can't even
Jax.
think of its name. Yeah.
Then that was from the original, you know, that's not their canon, supposedly. In fact, it's funny because they did that 108 one-shot that came out. And I was going, oh, this is going to be cool. And I ordered accordingly, and nobody was interested, which was kind of sad because that is kind of like when G.I. Joe started 155 and a half at Free Comic Book Day, and Transformers did 80.5 to continue that storyline. People were so stoked. But I think it's more or less, I know what you mean. That Star Wars was so different than what the original movies were planned to be. And they kept on evolving into its own expanded universe based off of that original thing. But they went off to their own direction where they'd be considered the first expanded universe storytelling of Star Wars, where now it's like the nostalgia of that series, it still goes up in value because that is the earliest Star Wars comics, the ones from 1977 to 1986.
Yeah.
But nobody cares to watch that story keep going.
Yeah, I mean, Jax to me is just a little funky, but like Dr. Aphra, like she feels like such an organic part.
And she's part of this modern era.
Yeah, she is.
And she's in the canon. Like where Jax is still not canon. It's funny too. Remember the troll covers they did? Yes. When the new Star Wars series said, like, there's one of Jax knocking on the door and Vader's kind of looking at him like, what's the problem? Like, they're trying to keep Jax from coming in the door.
Yeah, that's really funny.
And it kind of cracks me up because, like, John Tyler Christopher, you know, they must have had conversations like that. Okay, do we pick up where we left off or do we start fresh to tie into the movies?
Yeah.
And they said, you know what, dude, let's just start fresh and connect all the dots in the movies because there's so much open storytelling between the 7 to 15 years between each movie. Let's go forward and fill in those gaps because we have tons of material to fill in.
And the comics have been filling in the gaps really interestingly too. You know, it doesn't feel, I think, forced in any way. No. Like not that this is like a story I don't want to hear. Like it's, you know, there's a lot of good stuff. Even, you know, as far as what they're doing with like Vader Dark Visions.
Yes.
Like
dude, those were dark. Talk about that.
So you're the one who got me to pick up that was the Darth Vader Dark Visions number 3.
Yes.
Now, what's with the number 3 here with the Darth Vader comics?
Oh my gosh, dude. It's totally the I call like the social media commentary of like fans falling in love. It's not even before social media, like people in love with Elvis back in the day. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Type of thing too is like where we iconicize people in society and almost fall in love with them irrationally. Do you know what I mean? It's like that Elvis had that happen to him. James Dean had that happen to him.
Well, you know what? There's psychotic people out there.
Yeah, dude. And it's just, it's a story of this lady who was more or less just a doctor's assistant.
Okay. On the Death Star, right?
On the Death Star. And, you know, she sees Vader come in to get repaired and she goes, oh my gosh, I helped fix Vader. I got this personal connection with him. I have a chance with him. I just totally, this is destiny because I became in contact with
she becomes
Vader.
Infatuated with him.
She just goes off the rails imagining this future she's going to have with Vader. And she tries setting herself up for that meeting with Vader. And it finally happens at the end of the story. And she professes her love to him. And Vader just... nothing, not even a second to think about it. Lightsabers right there.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that was awesome.
You have no right to be in my quarters. I don't care how you feel about me type of thing. And it also reinforces that the only person for Vader is Padme. And there's nothing that
I thought that was what was so neat about it.
Yes. And it's like, you can't, you know, Vader's not moving on. He feels his hatred off of the loss of hoping that the goodness would be his way of life. And, you know, the goodness in his life was the love he had for Padme because he was feared by the Jedi, manipulated by the Sith, and Padme was the only person that saw him for who he was and his struggles that he had. And that was the only thing he cared about as Anakin that was not judged by him. and taken away from him.
Yeah,
and nothing's going to replace that because you're looking at me from a selfish point of view, and she was the most unselfish person of me, and that is like a love that I lost. Nothing's going to stop me from completing my mission of getting my revenge, whether it's against whoever it was. You know, the Emperor, obviously.
Well, the Emperor even
the
told
Jedi Order. It
the
was
Emperor
just
told
like
him to use the
hated.
death of Padme.
Yes,
you know, as
for your hatred.
Yes, like use it,
dude. And it's he that was a perfect example of him using that hatred towards his mission cannot be sidetracked.
But I think that's also like a unique story because, like, as far as I'm aware, like we haven't seen anything like that before.
Yes,
we haven't
neither.
seen someone who fell in love with Vader aside from Padme.
Yes.
There's with all of the millions of people like on the Death Star and everything, like how could this not have happened at some point?
Yeah.
Like somebody is psychotic enough to try this. Like, why not?
Yes.
This is absolutely so realistic that it would happen that it's almost ridiculous that it hasn't happened yet.
Yes, I thought it was great that someone, it's like it was right there on the wall, but said, oh, dude, no one really thought about that. Let's do it. And it fits so freaking perfectly.
I thought so.
And I said, too, that was by far one of the best Vader stories I think I've read in years. And I said, too, just the whole thing, too. Even worse, she walked in on him with his mask off. And that is do you know what I mean? That's him always reflecting on what he used to be and what he is now. And he's not happy with what he is now.
Yeah.
He deals with that as part of his hatred to look at himself like, look what I've become. And then, you know, her go, oh, you look so beautiful. It's like, oh, and I'm kind of going, he's like, I don't care how you look. And it was so Darth Vader cold-heartedly.
Absolutely. You know, it's like, you know, you got to like be okay with yourself you know, before you could even think about, you know, being with someone else. So like, I think that kind of plays into it too, because like he knows he looks like Humpty Dumpty.
Yes. He got put back together again, literally. Yeah,
absolutely. Between the white egg-shaped head and just really
then, you know,
being in pieces.
Yeah, they rebuilt them. They said too, like, Gobi cut them up.
As far as Marvel Comics too, an older one that I like to grab, and I can't believe that we haven't got this character in a Marvel movie yet, so I think we still have time to buy this first appearance of MODOK.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, dude. That's Tales of Suspense number 92?
I was going to say 93. It might be 92.
Okay. Yeah, 93, you're probably right. So remember, it was in the 90s issues of Tales of Suspense.
94.
Oh, it's off by 2 issues. Dang it, dude. Yes. MODOK is, dude. He's a character that's very interesting. They touched on him. That was Armin Zola they touched on.
Yeah, so that's confusing. That's probably why they didn't do it. You know?
Because it's like it's too close to Armin Zola type of deal.
Well, you know, they always push him in other mediums, you know, whether it's their cartoons or he's been in the old Ultimate Alliance games.
Yes.
And now isn't he going to be in one of the new Netflix animated shows?
Oh my gosh,
MODOK,
you're right.
And he's going to be played by, oh my goodness, what's his name? Patton Oswalt, I think, is going to be playing
Really?
MODOK.
The one from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Patton?
Yeah.
That's interesting, dude. Is that can be the transition for him becoming MODOK?
Oh, I don't know.
Because that's kind of cool to think about like that. Because isn't he an LMD in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. anyway?
Yeah, well, I know he's yeah, you're right. He's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, right? And he has a twin.
Yes.
Right?
And I thought they were LMDs, but maybe they are humans still.
Well, this is animated. I think it's going to be like
animated. Okay, so it's not going to be like the original.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay, I apologize.
They're doing like 4 animated shows for Hulu.
Yeah, for MODOK.
MODOK is one.
Okay.
And Patton Oswalt is doing, because it's going to be this is an adult-oriented animated series based on MODOK.
Okay.
And he's helming it. So like Patton Oswalt's the one actually doing the show, but I believe he's actually also playing MODOK.
Nice. That's awesome.
I believe what they announced along with that, I want to say it was Howard the Duck show. And one I'm looking forward to, it's going to be Dazzler and Tigra, I think it was.
Dude, the one redeeming value of the Dark Phoenix movie was that
right.
Dazzler scene. I love that. Yeah, go ahead. A lot of other redeeming things too, people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to hate on the Phoenix movie again. It's too easy.
Yeah, we didn't spend a whole episode doing that. But Dazzler's first appearance has already, I think, is already skyrocketed.
It's still got room, I think, potential wise.
You
to grow
think?
too.
Really?
I think like once the first X-Men movie hits Disney or the announcement, you're going to see all these key X-Men books start to climb the same way Spider-Man books did.
Okay.
And same way with, like that, the Wolverine books have, and even the Avengers books, what was it? The first appearance of Ultron. Do you know what I mean? That was like a $10, $15 book. And all of a sudden when they did the Ultron movie, it's like $100, $200 book. And it's kind of come back down to be about a $75 book.
It has really come back down.
But $75 versus $10 to $20. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Things are going to have their climbs again too. I mean, it's going to be, once again, key issues and first appearances that revolve around the storylines. But I do think Dazzler being part of such a major storyline in the first place, it's already got heat behind it. And when you have heat of being part of multiple reasons to collect it, it's part of the Dark Phoenix saga. It's part of the Chris Claremont, John Byrne run. Now it's getting the TV series coming. The Disney X-Men movies will come eventually.
Yep.
And all of these first appearances in the X-Men books eventually, I think, are going to start shooting up the same way the other Disney Marvel movie characters, like Black Panther. Awesome character for years.
That's one I regret not buying the first appearance of in the Fantastic Four issue.
Number 52, a Fantastic Four was always about a $200 book because it was first appearance of Black Panther. Yeah. Now try to get a near mint copy. It's like $2,000.
Well, plus it's old Fantastic Four.
Absolutely. It's Jack Kirby and Stan Lee still.
The only like real modern Marvel book with a first appearance that I've seen perform like old ones has been first Kamala Khan.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's crazy. And that was the second print cover.
Yes, that one goes for $1,000.
Yes.
Like my brother has a few of them, and like all of a sudden, like they're grand a pop. Like unbelievable.
It's insane.
Unbelievable.
And that's too. It's like people love first appearances. And I think another one that's going to eventually, a lot of people hate on this character, but you're starting to see her gain more traction is Gwenpool.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, and I hate saying that, but it's just like Gwenpool is a character they're going to start putting more focus on in the Marvel Universe again. And I'm kind of going like, do you know, it's like it's a Harley Quinn of Marvel, and that's what they kind of want out of it, but she's just one of us readers stuck in their world.
Yeah, I don't like that. It's such a silly concept. I think I do have a first appearance of her somewhere, but
people are starting to pay money for that Howard the Duck #1. It's also a $10, $15 book now.
Unbelievable.
And it's just the backup story in it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just it's not even that great of a story, but it is a first appearance of a character. And so too, and it came out as part of a joke. It was during the whole Secret Wars Deadpool cover month. Remember that? Where they did it was, they did Gwen the Duck, and they did the whole different covers, Gwen Rider, but the one that stuck was Gwenpool, because it was drawn by Chris Bacalo of a girl sitting by a pool that looked like Gwen Stacy wearing her version of her idea of what Deadpool would look like.
Yeah.
And it really took off until they decided, like, let's bring this character into the Marvel Universe. Same thing happened with Gwenom. Because they brought the Gwenom idea into the mainstream Marvel Universe because of a cover they did during that run too. And it's just the little things too, is like they can't seem to get enough of the Gwen Stacy mashup concept. And it's like Gwenpool and Gwenom are the ones that actually stuck and did well, but Gwenom's still the Gwen Stacy Spider-Gwen. But Gwenpool is a unique character, and I think they always wanted their version of Harley Quinn at Marvel, and they feel that's their road to Harley Quinn at Marvel.
I don't like that. I think they could have figured out something else, like just this alternate version of Deadpool that's also like this joke. Like I don't know. I'm just tired of it being such a joke.
Be original with that type of thing. I see what you're saying on that. But another book that I think is going to keep on gaining traction as a book to keep on watching. It already has taken off a lot, but Spider-Man 194, the first Black Cat, is going to continue to climb, because she is the Catwoman of the Marvel Universe.
And like those used to be really
affordable.
Really cheap. I don't know where they're sitting at now.
Yeah, they're getting up to 200 range now.
Really?
Yes, and that's a book that's going to keep on climbing.
It was like a $20, $40 book.
Yeah, so you got 1,000 8% increase in value over the past 10 years.
Yeah, no
on that book. It's not going to stop anytime soon.
I can see that, and it's any day now that she's going to be in a movie, right?
Absolutely.
Like they've already teased her twice, and we never got the follow through.
Yes, and she's a cat burglar. She doesn't have to depend on Spider-Man the same way Venom didn't have to depend on Spider-Man.
Did I tell you how I think she might be integrated soon?
How are they going to do that, you think?
So the Spider-Man Homecoming, they already confirmed that Felicia was that girl in the hallway with the black and the white hair, right?
Oh, that's cool.
So she was Peter's age in high school, right? So that's weird, right? But the snap took place for 5 years. If she did not get snapped, she finished high school, and who knows, maybe she became a freaking cat burglar.
Yes. I think that's awesome.
This is all happening, so she'll have to be like a little older than Tom Holland, but he's been gone.
Yes.
So effectively, like, it could still play out that was in fact Black Cat. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know. I think that's, I don't see why you can't do it that way, but yeah, and Black Cat, I didn't even think of that one. I was more thinking along the lines of, we already had a Silver Surfer and Galactus movie, but like, it wasn't that great.
Yes.
Once Marvel gets a hold of it,
the Fantastic Four 48 and 50 are going to jump up like crazy again.
Yeah. Yeah. They're sitting up there. I see a Fantastic Four, this 48, this 8.0 sold for $4,000, but a 5.0 sold for about $800 shipped.
Yes, that's not bad.
You think there's some room left once?
What grade? 5.0?
Yeah, 5.0. Yeah,
that'll still keep on. I would say.
And that's restored.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's crazy too. Is like restored books are starting to jump up in value as much as they are. A book that's going to continue to rise, like Hulk 181 right now.
You think that's going to continue to rise?
It's Giant Size X-Men #1.
Oh.
And that one's inflated a lot since the Disney Marvel merger or Fox merger.
Why do you think that is? You don't think that they would do like First Class first?
No, it's like, the book itself introduced 4 new characters.
Yeah.
And I said too, anytime you have a book that has so many new characters in one issue, it's appealing.
Yeah, X-Men #1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude. And it's like that I said too, is that, first Nightcrawler, first Thunderbird, first Colossus, first Storm.
Interesting.
And let me see too, is like I'm missing anybody there. But then it was the second appearance of Wolverine. It's not an early appearance, but like the 4th or 5th appearance of Banshee.
Yeah.
In there too as well. Sunfire's, I want to say, 2nd or 3rd appearance. I think he appeared over in a Namor book a couple times after his appearance in the X-Men there. And obviously you've said Wolverine already. Who else am I forgetting? Anybody else I'm forgetting in there?
I think you covered it. I mean, that was more than I even realized, to be honest.
And it's just it's hard to find. It's like the Amazing Fantasy 15 of X-Men.
Okay.
In my appearance. Because X-Men, in my opinion, X-Men #94 is kind of like your Spider-Man #1 of that era of X-Men. And that's another book that's extremely has room for growth right now, is because that's the first ongoing issue of the new X-Men. And then 95, I think, is extremely undervalued too, because that was the first death of a major X-Men in Thunderbird.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And like no X-Men died up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Thunderbird, more or less, his death led to the groundwork of Wolverine exploding as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that when Chris Claremont was writing the X-Men, Thunderbird and Wolverine, their personalities were too similar to what Wolverine is now.
I can see that.
Because like Thunderbird had that early, what do you know, Cyclops type of attitude before he died. And then after Thunderbird died, Chris Claremont gave that rivalry to Wolverine. And Wolverine is now what he is, because I hate saying it, the death of Thunderbird. And imagine like if things kept on progressing where they killed off Wolverine rather than Thunderbird, but Wolverine had the healing factor.
Yeah.
So he couldn't really die. And Thunderbird died a hero, stopping Count Nefaria.
Interesting.
Right there. And so he died like this glorious death of like, no, Cyclops told him, jump off. Thunderbird's like, shut up, Cyclops, I got this type of thing. And boom, it's like, oh my gosh, dude, this guy died a major hero, saved the day.
If that's ever in a movie, like that will skyrocket.
That's an insane storyline. That's very underappreciated. It's the 3rd appearance of the new X-Men. It's the death of a character. And it's the road for Wolverine getting the free shackles taken off to be developed as a character.
I mean, you look at something like the death of Gwen Stacy, that jumped up just because of a death. So I don't think it's too far off that especially if that plays out in a movie.
Oh my gosh,
something like that could definitely play out. I mean, death of Jean Grey, is
a huge deal.
Yeah,
in X-Men history.
She's one of the few people who stayed dead for a very long time.
Yes, yeah, and same with Thunderbird. I mean, I said too. It's like Thunderbird never came back. His brother, younger brother, John Proudstar, is now Warpath, and he has the same look as his brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's as close as it gets to the return of Thunderbird.
That was them, essentially bringing him back, I think.
Because I think there was a cult following for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But
something that has jumped up in value, and I think it'd be interesting to hear your opinion if you think this has any further to go, is Mighty Thor 337.
Yes.
First beta ray bill.
Yeah.
So I've picked up at least a couple of those in dollar bins because nobody cares about.
Recently?
No,
Yes, dude.
Years and years ago. But now I'm looking at it, I see the last graded one on eBay. It was a 9.4 sold for $200.
There's rumors that's going to be another movie character coming up too, is Beta Ray Bill.
Like I said, they already set up Stormbreaker. So, I'd be shocked that, why else we're introducing Stormbreaker, just not give it to Beta Ray Bill?
Exactly. And another thing too about that issue, historically, that's always been an important issue to non-movie collectors.
Mm-hmm.
It's Walter Simonson's first issue of writing Thor.
No kidding.
And that started the new era of Thor, the bearded Thor, where he got
turned
into a frog, introduced Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah.
But those were, Walter Simonson took risks with Thor that were never done up to that point. Same way with what Peter David did with the Hulk. I mean, Thor was, the god of thunder, and nothing could defeat him. But he made Loki a more important character. He introduced Curse. He introduced the bearded Thor, the Thor frog, the armored Thor. Walter Simonson took risks, but that was Walter Simonson brought Thor into a new realm of storytelling that other people didn't take risks with since Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Wow.
And so that was, to me, that. It was memorable Thor.
I think it also will depend on how they handle Beta Ray Bill and how the general audience reacts to it. Because if he does become a popular character,
yes,
that will skyrocket. This could be, worth $800.
Yeah, it's the first appearance of a new character
in a couple of years. Yeah, I mean, we went from dollar bin to about $200, right? So
yes, and I really think the first appearance of Mystique is an undervalued comic too. And
is it still undervalued?
Miss Marvel, I think so. If you get it for under $100.
Yeah.
Do you mean
you can still get it for under $100?
Yeah, I think it's around 75 to 100 if it's not graded.
Yeah.
I mean, grade is a whole other window.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
a CGC 9.8, I think is kind of an unfair value for comics because there's not enough CGC 9.8s out there. What's the average copy you are going to find? Well, that's an interesting thing I just noticed. I always list things that I think of potential are going to become valuable over time for decent prices to see if they're ever going to gather steam. Something I just looked at my eBay to look up, see what was the last book we were just talking about. I apologize, dude.
Thor 337.
Let's see, Thor 337. Wasn't there another one we just brought up too?
Before Thor 337?
Right after Thor 337? Oh, the Mystique.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Marvel number 16. But this book I speculated on years ago when it first came out, and I've been sitting on them for quite a while.
Yeah.
Because Dan Slott was doing tweets and Instagram posts. This is the most significant thing to happen to Spider-Man since Eddie Brock was introduced.
Huh.
And it was Dr. Octopus becoming Spider-Man.
Oh.
Spider-Man number 698.
Yeah. So Superior Spider-Man?
Yeah. Amazing Spider-Man 698 is the first reveal that Doc Ock became Spider-Man.
Okay.
And that is such a major part of Spider-Man's storytelling now in modern history. He's got his own series, Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, even though they ended that storyline, people required, they loved Doc Ock being Spider-Man for some reason. Because he went places where Spider-Man wouldn't go to. He's almost like the Red Hood to Batman.
Huh.
Do you know what I mean? And he's trying to learn to be more of a superhero type of idealistic superhero even more now again in the Superior Spider-Man series. But the Clone Conspiracy gave him that second shot at being Spider-Man. But Amazing Spider-Man 698 was the start of that storyline with Doc Ock being Spider-Man. And Dan Slott, even back in the day, said, this is probably one of the most significant moments in Spider-Man history that's going to be going on in the storyline. And, it was, Superior Spider-Man went over pretty well with fans. It's almost like what I consider the modern day Black Suit era. is like when it came out, people were pissed about it. But then they read it and they took it away, and people were pissed they took it away. And so eventually they had to find a way to involve it into Venom.
Yeah.
Because there was too much polarity on it. But that first appearance of the black suit Spider-Man is now rising because they're doing the symbiote Spider-Man storyline. That is the road to Venom.
Yeah.
Is Spider-Man number 252.
Yep.
And that's always going to be your Venom story.
Yep.
But people look at Spider-Man 300 as that's your important book. Same thing with Amazing Spider-Man number 698 is that's your road to the superior Spider-Man, because that's when the mind switch happened. Was right there. They announced that mind switch happened on that. And that's the road to superior Spider-Man. And Peter Parker died for the first time in that storyline. And, you know, luckily Doc Ock's a little bit of a mad genius I need to keep Peter Parker's mind waves on file, you know, because he more or less recorded his brain waves over Spider-Man's brain waves. Super trippy, but eventually that has now, he became his own character, and Peter Parker's his own character too as well. But someone just purchased that out of my eBay store.
Nice.
And it's $9.99. I think is a little bit of an overinflated price on it. But that book deserves to be $10 in my mind.
Yeah.
And so if that starts becoming a chain reaction, other people saying like that, oh, it's sold for $9.99, that means someone else is trying to sell for $14.99. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, that's how it goes.
And so it is like there's little trends that you start seeing like, okay, why is this happening? Yeah, but Miss Marvel #1, you could get a 9.2 ungraded for $84.95.
Huh.
And that's the first appearance of Mystique or Raven Darkholm.
Number 16?
Yes.
Yeah.
The number 18 is her first cover appearance, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I know 16, 17, 18 all have some kind of significance.
Okay, no, 18 is her first full appearance. That's right. She's not on the cover yet. I don't think she ever appeared on the cover of a Miss Marvel book. Now I'm thinking about it. But then number 18, as I said too, is you can get the first full Mystique for $79.99 raw. Do you know what I mean? And that looks like 18 starting to even climb higher than 16 now, which is cool to see.
This one might be a little obvious right now, especially with the rumors of him being in the Black Widow movie. But I think now might be like the last chance to really get in on Taskmaster.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
I think there's a lot of potential with the character, and hopefully I think it'll go back down if they just use him as a throwaway, you know, in the Black Widow movie.
Yes, I do think there's a character that, unfortunately, the market crashed on him, and there's still a ton of potential for him.
You're going to say Nova.
Is Scott Lang.
Really?
In Avengers 181. And that Tales to Astonish 47.
Okay.
Because those books are under $100 again. And I'm going like, why did that book drop like that? Kind of reminds me of like after the more or less the Punisher movie that came out with Dolph Lundgren. I mean, oh my gosh, dudes, Punisher movie. It's like that Spider-Man 129 jumped up to be like almost a $600 book.
Yeah.
And then dropped back down to a $200 book. And then when Thomas Jane's Spider-Man or Punisher came out, that Spider-Man 129 started climbing again. And now it's almost a $2,000 book again. And so it's the first appearance of the Punisher.
Yep.
Do you mean, regardless, I mean, that's Scott Lang. That's the movie Ant-Man. Do you mean Hank Pym? They talked about being Ant-Man, but Scott Lang is the movie Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And he's enjoyable. Paul Rudd's an enjoyable actor. He went over well. I didn't think Ant-Man was going to be cool, but it was better than I expected.
Yes. I would just say he's still not Iron Man or Captain America.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's why he's kind of not at those prices. And it's a little more modern than like first Iron Man and first Captain America, you know, first Scott Lang.
Yeah, that's true. Like I kind of consider the Ant-Man is kind of like the Hal Jordan of the Marvel universe.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that Hal Jordan, Green Lantern's a cool character, but he's nobody's favorite.
I have a friend who his favorite's Hal Jordan.
Really?
Green Lantern, though.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's people that favorite characters are Ant-Man out there too, as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Like he's not the focus character of the group, like your Spider-Man or your Captain America or your Iron Man.
You're right.
But he makes the team work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like Green Lantern's got some of the coolest powers. I mean, he can make constructs out of everything. But for whatever reason, well, why don't people really put a huge focus? I mean, Jeff Johns was the one that put Green Lantern on the map in the modern day. You know, obviously in the 1960s and 70s, you had Denny O'Neil and Roy Thomas and Neil Adams, working together to make Green Lantern and Green Arrow memorable together as a team. But it wasn't until Parallax happened where Hal Jordan became a focused character.
Excuse me.
And but Scott Lang, he never has any of the baggage that Hank Pym has, because Hank Pym had those domestic violence issues back in the 80s that did stories with, and Scott Lang's kind of your positive, downtrodden, hard life character that doesn't break. He's kind of like the Peter Parker of Ant-Man.
Yeah, I could.
In a way of saying that.
I see what you're saying.
Almost like Kyle Rayner, I guess, of Green Lanterns in a way.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like Kyle Rayner, unfortunately, isn't appreciated as a Green Lantern as much as he could be either. But he's still the second Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And like that, technically some people, it's like Wally West Flash versus Barry Allen Flash. They're going to have their followers, but they're never going to be, do you know what I mean? That's Barry Allen and Wally West. And then there was Jay Garrick. Like the good things that Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and Iron Man have had is like, Spider-Man predominantly has always been Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And even though James Rhodes was Iron Man for a short period of time when Tony Stark was dealing with alcoholism, Tony Stark was never taken out of the story. Do you know what I mean? And when Wally West was Flash, Barry Allen wasn't there until Barry Allen came through the time stream. When Barry Allen was Flash, Jay Garrick was a secondary star. Superman, Clark Kent, has always predominantly been Superman. Batman predominantly over the years has always been Bruce Wayne, even though they had that short run before New 52 started where Dick Grayson was a secondary Batman when Bruce Wayne even came back.
No, you're absolutely right.
It's like that. Scott Lang is arguably, I think, the better story as a second generation character over Hank Pym.
Yes. If you just came at me saying that, I would say, no, you're wrong, but that's a great argument. And I now I can kind of see a little, because I was annoyed that they didn't do Hank Pym first.
Yes.
But now I see what you're saying. And I think I'm more okay with it too, now that Hank Pym still was for an Ant-Man for a significant time. It's just, it was a different era.
Can you imagine if they tried telling that story of like the domestic violence issues between him and Janet Pym?
That's rough. And you don't
like in this Marvel universe, because the one thing that kept beautiful is the relationship between Hank and Janet was never soiled.
I'm glad they didn't do that, because it's too much.
It's too much. Even what Mark Miller did in the Ultimates when they did that whole bug spray scene, that was one of the most shocking moments I think I've ever seen in comic history. And yes, the Ultimate Universe is, a reflection of the original Marvel Universe, but going to the point of like Mark Miller took those domestic violence issues among superheroes, like, hey, it could happen with anybody, even superheroes, and took it. I was like appalled at some ways watching the domestic dispute between Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, where he's just anger management issues out of control and took out the bug spray and started spraying wasps with the bug spray and then used the ant helmet to have her attacked with ants afterwards.
It was too much.
That's way too dark. You can't do that in the movies. That destroys the whole franchise.
And to make it even worse, she ends up with Captain America. So like he's a homewrecker now, like it's too much.
Dude, it was too out of control.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Ultimates set the groundwork for the Avengers movie storytelling.
Luckily,
and they're smart enough to take stuff out of that.
Yes.
The costumes, the Nick Fury. I mean, just the whole Chitauri.
The Chitauri.
That was from Mark Miller's Ultimates run.
It was.
He movieized the Avengers, but they were smart enough to look at these and goes, we can't have
this
that.
This is too much. It's way too dark. And then you would have had
Freddie Prinze Jr. jealousy over Betty Ross too,
talking about his feelings.
Yes, exactly, dude.
It was too much. And then he's eating the aliens.
Dude. Great comic storytelling, but you can't put that in the movie theaters.
It's the Ultimate Universe can stay within the Ultimate Universe.
What do you think about Miles Morales' first appearance? That book is shooting up like crazy right now, and I love that book. Ultimate Fallout -- to me is the Amazing Fantasy 15 of Ultimates of Miles Morales.
I don't like Miles Morales.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he's a hugely popular character.
That movie shot him through the stratosphere.
Yeah, following the success, especially of Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
I think he's so popular that it's only a matter of time before we get something else, especially now that we understand that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a multiverse. Yes. Marvel might be comfortable with the idea of making a Miles Morales movie that takes place within its own universe.
I totally love the idea of bringing Miles Morales into the high school where Peter Parker's at, and it's 5 years later, and Miles is now their age.
Interesting. But then shouldn't Peter Parker die?
The what?
Then shouldn't Peter Parker die?
You don't have to. They're together in the universe right now.
And he looks up to Spider-Man. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And he
so
tried.
So they're the same age, but he is older.
He tried replacing Spider-Man when Peter Parker disappeared, and that's going to be the story they bring him in together.
Well, then he has to be older, right? Or no, unless he's really young and now he's just now getting into high school. I see what you're saying.
And like he was so impacted, like, where's Spider-Man? I can't believe he died. Same thing like they did in the Ultimate Fallout type thing when Green Goblin killed him in the Ultimate Universe. But it's the snap that made him go, oh, my favorite superhero's on. And then they do the kind of story of Miles Morales going through that 5-year window where it's his movie. Then it's all of a sudden, you know what I mean? And the extra scene credits after Far From Home, you know, they more or less have Miles Morales be a conversation they have at lunch or something. You know, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, you know what I mean? That you're back. This is awesome. And at the same time, I'm kind of going, where do I go from here?
Yeah, I think the snap is going to have lots more consequences that we've yet to even see or think of. I think that's absolutely possible. Something I never hear anyone bring up on any, I don't think I've ever heard. So like somebody you need to get the first appearance of is Death. And she first appeared in Captain Marvel 26.
Nice. That's interesting.
So I don't know. I mean, she wasn't in Infinity War, but I don't know. How could they not introduce the concept of death? I mean, we already started going to like the elders of the universe and the cosmic beings, and we have an Eternals movie coming out. Like, why can't we have death come out? Like, do you think we'll ever get death in an MCU movie?
Yeah, I think you would have to, especially when it comes to the deal of bringing back a character, if they ever want to bring back a character.
Well, you screwed us out of a good Marvel story already.
Yes.
And she's not in Infinity War. And those are two of her most iconic Marvel like interactions, aside from what, like Deadpool's origin, maybe? Yeah. Is the only other thing I could really think of.
Well, it's too is like if they ever want to bring back Black Widow, can she have that conversation with Death?
When I first saw Red Skull guarding the Soul Stone and you didn't see his face, I was like,
Death.
This is Death. And then he sounded like a man. I'm like, oh, they made Death a man. And I was like, oh, it's the Red Skull.
Yeah. It's like that so infatuated with the Soul Stone.
I was so disappointed that it wasn't Death.
Yeah, with like the Soul Stone is one thing, but Death is something else. And so she gave herself up to the Soul Stone, and maybe Death's like that. Oh, dude, it's like, you know, I don't want you yet.
Huh.
And we're almost like or Black Widow kind of, I did this sacrifice, but there's more
selfless.
Yeah, it was selfless. And so like Death or Morals tells her like, you don't get to decide when you die, and more or less forces her back into existence. And she feels like that, you know, it's like she's jaded towards the fact of like that you're taking away my sacrifice for humanity. Yeah. And so she more or less is even more chasing death. Do you know what I mean? Like a how would you say it? Risk taker than even before, where it's like that death keeps on pushing her away from her fate until obviously age takes its course and death can't stop it anymore type of thing.
Interesting.
And kind of like an adventures of like Black Widow being just death defying Black Widow, where almost, you know, I mean, I don't say Daredevil type of thing too, but just like that, where it leads to the Daredevil Black Widow relationship, even if you want it to in a way, because there was those Daredevil Black Widow relationships in the past.
Yeah, no, there absolutely was. And I almost feel like it's a shame we're not going to get something like that, you know, if she's dead and he's in the TV shows.
And I don't think this will happen, but that would be kind of a fun way to see Death kind of, you know, more or less have that rivalry with like, can Black Widow figure out how to defeat Death in a way?
Just with all the cosmic beings, you know, like to me, she's one of the coolest.
Yes.
You know, so like, I don't know, like, is it too abstractive an idea to have death and eternity in the living tribunal?
Yes.
You know, but
that'd
like,
be kind of cool.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Like mind blowing to see it all happen, which would be epic to see.
Maybe they're saving it because like they're going bigger and bigger. Like sure, like Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet was one thing, but like not introducing all the cosmic beings yet and saving that for, you know, later, you know, trials and problems, you know. And so the living tribunal, you know, is like the most powerful being in the universe, you know, aside from, I don't know, maybe like one person. I can't even think of, you know.
Man, dude, that's interesting. I love thinking of these theories like that. Who are going to be the next big issue comics to go looking for? And as I said too, is like in the Marvel universe, it's such an expansive sandbox of things to take a look at. And,
well, Eternals right now is shooting up.
Yes, and I think those are going to be temporary in some way, even though they're Jack Kirby creations.
I think it's going to depend on how well the movies
are. You're right. That's a good point.
Because right now you're gearing up with Angelina Jolie, so like, you know, they're already starting to try to really pull people in. Like, right, it just depends on how they react, because the Eternals can.
The Inhumans had that same impact when they were doing Inhuman
yep,
stuff.
You're right.
Unfortunately,
that book skyrocketed, and now it's back down.
Because that was probably the one failure I think Marvel. You know, the good thing is fans don't hang their hat on like, oh man, look how horrible Marvel did with those. I mean, some people say that, but it's not the center of conversation.
No, it's not. But
how much of a failure Inhumans were.
Bad. Like that first episode, like I was literally laughing, like in a bad way, because it was so ridiculous.
And that's sometimes hard if like characters that they don't quite understand. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy caught magic in a bottle, but that they tweaked Guardians of the Galaxy.
And I'm really disappointed because like I love the Inhumans. Like Black Bolt's such a cool character. Yes. Medusa. I mean, the rest of them, I mean, maybe you can keep, but like those two, like if you centered it around them, like such a cool, you know, like love story.
Yeah, Karnak and Crystal and some of those other characters, they can still do stuff with.
They can. I just think, you know, like I always found them less interesting.
Tough, I think is what it is.
Do you think? Because I think he'd be like the perfect like mascot. You know, he's like the Snoopy of the gang.
That's true. He could. He's the Scooby-Doo, right?
Even though if he's a giant dog, you know, like make him likable, make him like a dog. You know, and it's so much more interesting because he's just this giant doofy thing to lick you or whatever, but he teleports. Like, how cool is that?
Transportation wise, it's one of the best transportations that you
can
think about earlier.
Right? Yeah, right. We should have bridged it with the Lockjaw.
No, dude.
Because like, you know, even though it wasn't successful, like they were making the Lockjaw plushes and stuff, and you know, like if the Inhumans did well, like I think there would be more of a demand for Lockjaw merchandise.
Yes. Another thing I've noticed recently climb up in value too, I just thought about top of my head, is that the first appearance of Falcon is Captain America, because they have that Winter Soldier Falcon
that's a
series
great point.
going on, and those books are starting to climb because they were like in the $5 range, and now they're already hitting 20.
Yeah,
and that's like small dollar stuff, but it's still stuff that's going to continue to rise over time because it's now a significant part of history.
Yep, and if he's, you know, he might be Captain America in that series, or whether he's in the movie, like if audiences receive it well, I think it can really climb.
And in that case too, Daredevil number 232, because if they make John Walker the U.S. agent, like a rival, or I'm thinking of Nuke. Actually, he's already been inside the Jessica Jones series. My apologies.
Yeah,
dude.
Nuke. Yeah.
Thinking like that 332 of Captain America, when Captain America retired for the first time. And they had like the government replacement was John Walker, who eventually became the U.S. agent. And that's like if they do more or less have something where the government, now that everything is now safe, it's like they don't agree with the government choice, or Falcon doesn't choose to work with the government.
Yeah.
Do they put out that more or less other Captain America
I think that would be
try
cool.
to start like a rivalry between Falcon and this replacement Cap, whether he's a U.S. agent or Cap, whatever they want to call him?
I think they should do U.S. agent. Like, I mean, he was like, you know, I had one of the coolest, you know, kind of, I call it a Captain America costume. Like,
yes.
I guess like
I love the black and red white stuff that Steve Rogers wore, and that eventually went over to John Walker. And remember, as a kid, like he joined the West Coast Avengers.
Yeah,
the government
that's right.
put him in the West Coast Avengers, which was hilarious. And Hawkeye, this is my team. Says not anymore. Dude, and that whole Captain America Hawkeye rivalry started again, which was kind of hilarious because they always had that. You know, funny. Like Hawkeye wanted to lead the Avengers, and Steve Rogers like, dude, I don't care if they want to lead it or not. This is my team. And do you know what I mean? It's like Hawkeye, the natural born leader, trying to more or less establish himself in his own team, showing that he could be just as good a leader as Captain America. And then also the government forces this John Walker guy into the situation. Hawkeye's like, F this. Fun storytelling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think really when it comes to the value of the books, maybe it's obvious, but you just got to watch the trends that are coming up, that are potentially coming up in the movies, whether they're very roughly alluded to, or like, I think one of the best things to do is see what Marvel is doing. I don't know if DC does this as much, but see what they're doing in other mediums.
Yes.
Because like they'll put them in the Marvel Legends series, or they'll put them on a shirt, or they'll put them in a video game, and then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, oh, look.
Yep. Well, the whole thing too, they just put out that Kraven's Last Hunt 2-pack. inside the Target exclusive.
That's right, they did.
Just finished a Kraven storyline at Marvel where they killed Kraven again, and the Son's now taking on the mantle of Kraven.
Interesting.
Chameleon's just popping up at the end of Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Or at the Spider-Man storyline here. It's like that, okay, are they going to set up Kraven and the Chameleon?
Well, they're saying there's rumors that there's going to be, there's rumors that we might get Chameleon soon.
That would be epic. And I said, too, those are things to look out for. I mean, the Chameleon's such an early appearance, Spider-Man number 1, unfortunately. But Kraven, Spider-Man number 15, that book is slowly, steadily rised, but it's not anything like a lot of the other first appearances, like the Scorpions. Scorpion's a little bit under the radar, too, but they had that introduction at the end of the last Spider-Man movie. But Vulture's first appearance is valuable. Sandman's first appearance is valuable. Green Goblin's obviously going to be one of the most valuable first appearances.
Yep, absolutely.
Rhino, I think, is undervalued as a first appearance character, even though he's been in movies.
I think it's just because Rhino's kind of lame.
Yeah, but he's still a first appearance Spider-Man villain.
Yes, absolutely.
And in the first 50 issues. Like another one, too, is Kingpin's first appearance. I mean, it's a valuable book.
Yeah.
But Kingpin is so integral to so many different characters in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
I mean, he messes with everybody.
Yeah, Daredevil,
Spider-Man, Punisher. I mean, he's probably the most diversified villain among the Marvel Universe where he can connect in.
And that's why I hope Vincent D'Onofrio doesn't just stay, within the Daredevil show. Like, I would love for him to cross to Tom Holland, and if they did like a Sinister Six kind of a thing, kind of like,
he's
like
the
in
mayor
the cartoon.
of New York City in the comics, right?
Yeah, exactly. I especially now that a lot of the Netflix shows are canceled, like, I think it would be a nice time to like start bringing some things over.
You could do a Kingpin TV series on his own.
I almost felt like Daredevil season 1, almost was that, for a while, because he had his own origin story and his own love story, and you felt bad for him. I was almost rooting for him. He just wanted.
He was an anti-hero. He wasn't as much a villain, but an anti-hero.
Yep, absolutely. Oh yeah, those are our speculations. We're not telling you how to spend your money, but just our 2 cents on the matter. But it's sometimes just fun to invest in comics. Feel free to tweet or comment on social media on some of the things that you guys think might be some upcoming valuable books.
Yeah, what are your top 5 favorite prospect books that you are on your bucket list or think that you need to get before they explode? We'd like to see your list.
Yeah, let's hear it. But drop those comments. Like, share the podcast with your friends. I appreciate you all taking the time to listen, and we'll see you same time next week.
Sounds great. Thank you for listening.